All right, UPSC aspirants, welcome back for part 2 of our February 7th, 2025 deep dive into current affairs that can really make or break your exam prep.
You said it.
Remember, we're going deeper to uncover those insights that can really set you apart.
Right. And even if we touch on some topics you've already heard before.
Consider this your rapid revision session.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about connecting the dots, understanding the why behind the what, and getting comfortable analyzing different perspectives.
Okay, so let's jump in.
Sounds good.
First up, India is making some serious moves in the energy storage world.
Um,
You've probably heard of lithium-ion batteries, but what about a CO2 battery?
that's what makes this NTPC project in Karnataka so fascinating. They're using a CO2 battery storage system,
Okay.
which is a whole different ballgame compared to traditional batteries. Instead of relying on chemical reactions, this system actually stores energy by compressing and liquefying CO2.
So are we talking about like capturing excess solar or wind power and essentially storing it in like a supercharged gas canister?
That's a great way to visualize it.
Okay.
And when you need that energy back, the CO2 expands, driving a turbine.
Yeah.
This technology is still relatively new, but it has some major advantages.
Yeah.
For example, it doesn't degrade as quickly as conventional batteries, meaning it can store energy for much longer periods.
That sounds like a game changer, especially when we're talking about renewable energy sources that can be so intermittent.
Right.
But how does this fit into the larger picture of India's energy strategy?
Well, you can't talk about India's energy future without talking about coal. The Ministry of Coal is making a big push for coal gasification,
Okay.
even rolling out a financial incentive scheme to encourage its adoption.
Hold on. Coal gasification. Isn't coal, a major contributor to climate change?
It's true that coal has a bad reputation, and for good reason.
Yeah.
But coal gasification is a way to make it cleaner and more versatile. Essentially, it involves transforming coal into a gas called syngas, which can then be used for a variety of purposes.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this syngas. What can you actually do with it?
Syngas can be used to generate electricity, which is a major plus for a country with India's growing energy demands. But it's not just about power generation. Syngas is also a valuable feedstock for producing chemicals and petrochemicals, things like fertilizers, plastics, and even synthetic fuels.
So could this potentially reduce our reliance on imported oil and gas?
Exactly. That's one of the big potential benefits of coal gasification, especially for a country like India that imports a significant amount of its energy. But there are definitely challenges as well.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, building coal gasification plants requires a huge upfront investment. It's also a complex process that requires specialized technology and expertise. And then there's the issue of India's coal itself. It often has a high ash content, which can pose technical challenges for gasification.
It sounds like a bit of a trade-off then, promising potential, but with some hurdles to overcome.
That's a good way to put it. It's definitely a complex issue with no easy answers.
All right, let's shift gears now to a topic that always sparks debate. Begging. The Bhopal administration recently prohibited begging in public places, and it's raising some important questions about how we address this issue as a nation.
This ban is based on the Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita of 2023, or BNSS for short. It's a law that allows authorities to intervene in situations that could disrupt public order and tranquility. But when you apply it to begging, things get a lot more complex.
Right, because there are also constitutional rights to consider.
Absolutely. Article 23 of the Indian Constitution prohibits forced labor, and many argue that criminalizing begging essentially equates it to forced labor. And then there's the SMILE scheme, which stands for Support for Marginalized Individuals for Livelihood and Enterprise.
Right.
This is a central government initiative aimed at rehabilitating people engaged in begging.
So we have laws that aim to maintain public order
Yeah.
and laws that protect individual rights.
Right.
And then we have government programs designed to address the root causes of begging. It seems like a very multifaceted issue.
It absolutely is. Some people argue that begging is directly linked to organized crime, while others see it as primarily a consequence of poverty and lack of opportunity. There are concerns about the impact of begging on tourism and the local economy, but there are also concerns about criminalizing poverty and further marginalizing vulnerable populations.
I remember reading a report from the National Human Rights Commission that recommended a more holistic approach. What did they suggest?
The NHRC emphasized the need for a comprehensive national policy that focuses on protecting and rehabilitating beggars rather than simply punishing them. They also highlighted the importance of tackling organized crime syndicates that exploit vulnerable people for begging. And crucially, they called for better data collection to truly understand the scale and complexity of the issue.
So it's not just about enforcing bans, it's about understanding the root causes,
Right.
providing support, and ensuring that people's rights are protected.
That's exactly right. It's about finding solutions that are both effective and compassionate.
Now let's move on to a topic that's vital for any aspiring bureaucrat, the relationship between academia and industry.
You're hitting on a key point there. The Director General of the Bureau of Indian Standards recently emphasized the importance of what's called academia-industry collaboration, or AIC for short.
Okay.
This is a crucial area that often pops up in UPSC exams, so it's worth understanding why it's so important.
Well, I can imagine that getting universities and businesses to work together could lead to some pretty amazing innovations, right?
You're absolutely right. Think of it like this: academia has the research expertise and the innovative ideas, while industry has the resources and the practical know-how to turn those ideas into real-world products and solutions.
Do we have any good examples of this in India?
We sure do. The IIT Madras Research Park is a fantastic example. It's a hub where startups, research institutions, and established companies all come together to collaborate.
Okay.
This has led to the creation of over 200 startups and attracted significant investment.
It's amazing to see that kind of synergy in action. But I imagine it's not always easy to get academia and industry on the same page. What are some of the challenges they face?
You've hit the nail on the head. Funding is a major hurdle. India's investment in research and development as a percentage of our GDP is still pretty low compared to countries like the US and China. That makes it tough to get innovative projects off the ground.
So we need to invest more in research and development if we want to see more successful collaborations between academia and industry.
Exactly. But it's not just about money. We also need to make it easier to translate research into marketable products. Sometimes there's a disconnect between what's happening in the lab and what's actually needed in the marketplace.
I see. So we need to streamline the process of commercializing research. Is there anything else?
Yes, we need to make sure researchers have the right incentives to collaborate with industry. Right now, a lot of emphasis is placed on publishing academic papers,
Right.
which is important, but it doesn't always translate into practical applications.
So we need a system that rewards both academic excellence and real-world impact.
Exactly. We need to create an environment where collaboration is encouraged and where researchers and businesses see the value in working together. That's how we can unlock the true potential of AIC and make it a driving force for India's growth.
Okay, let's move on to a topic that's generating both excitement and concern: artificial intelligence, especially its potential role in governance. It seems like every day there's a new headline about AI, but what does it actually mean for a future IAS officer?
Well, the government recently issued a warning to its employees about using AI tools like ChatGPT on official devices. They cited data security risks as a major concern, and this highlights the double-edged sword of AI, its incredible potential, but also its inherent risks.
It's a bit like fire, isn't it? You can use it to cook food or you can burn your house down.
That's a great analogy. On the one hand, AI has the potential to revolutionize governance. Think about data-driven policymaking, more efficient public service delivery, even tackling complex issues like climate change. AI could play a huge role in all of these areas. But on the flip side, there are real worries about data breaches, biased algorithms, and the erosion of human accountability.
Can you give me some examples of how those risks could play out in the real world?
Absolutely. Remember the WannaCry ransomware attack that crippled the UK's National Health Service a few years back? That's a stark reminder of how vulnerable our digital systems are. And when it comes to biased algorithms, well, we've seen examples of that in the US, where predictive policing algorithms have been shown to disproportionately target certain communities based on race or socioeconomic background.
So how do we ensure that AI is used responsibly in governance, especially here in India?
That's the million-dollar question. It starts with having clear guidelines and regulations in place and a robust governance framework that prioritizes data privacy and security. The NAT IOG has taken a step in the right direction with its responsible AI for all framework, but we still have a long way to go.
And what about making sure that humans are still in control, that we're not just blindly following the decisions made by machines?
That's where the concept of human-in-the-loop models comes in. Basically, it means that even in systems that are heavily driven by AI, there's always human oversight, especially when it comes to critical decisions that impact people's lives. Accountability can't be outsourced to algorithms.
That's a reassuring thought. Now let's turn our attention to higher education, which is always a hot topic for UPSC aspirants. The proposed Higher Education Commission of India bill, or HECI bill, is aiming to shake things up, but it's also generating some controversy. Can you break it down for us?
Sure. The HECI bill seeks to replace the University Grants Commission, or UGC, with the HECI as the main regulatory body for higher education. However, it wouldn't cover medical and legal education, which would remain under separate regulatory bodies. The idea is to simplify the regulatory landscape and address some of the persistent challenges facing higher education in India.
So it's a pretty major overhaul of the system. What are some of the concerns people are raising about the HECI bill?
The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Education has raised concerns about too much power being concentrated in the hands of the HECI. They argued that the proposed structure of the HECI would give the central government a lot of control, potentially sidelining the role of states in higher education.
So it's about maintaining a balance of power between the center and the states.
Exactly. There are also concerns about how the HECI bill might impact educational institutions, especially those in rural areas. Some critics worry that the HECI's emphasis on standardization and quality could lead to the closure of smaller rural institutions that might struggle to meet the new requirements.
That's a valid concern. We don't want to create a system that inadvertently limits access to higher education, especially for students in rural and underserved communities.
Absolutely. And there's another concern that's been bubbling up. Some people worry that the HECI bill could indirectly encourage the privatization of higher education, particularly in rural areas where government institutions might face more challenges meeting the new standards.
So it seems like the HECI bill is a complex piece of legislation with the potential for both positive and negative consequences. It definitely seems like something that needs careful consideration and debate before any major decisions are made. But let's move on now to our rapid-fire quick hits section, where we cover a mix of interesting developments that might not make the front page,
Right.
but could still be relevant for your UPSC prep. And you know how much the examiners love those quirky little details that show you've gone the extra mile.
That's right. It's all about showcasing your awareness of the breadth and depth of current affairs.
Exactly. So first up, let's talk about a superfood that's getting some serious attention in the union budget, makhana. I know it sounds a bit random, but hear me out.
Makhana, also known as foxnuts or lotus seeds, has been a popular snack in India for centuries. But now it's getting a boost thanks to its nutritional value and its potential to create economic opportunities.
So it's not just a tasty snack, it's a potential economic powerhouse.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is that Bihar dominates makhana production in India.
Okay.
They account for almost 90% of the total output. To give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, nearly 200,000 hectares of land dedicated to makhana cultivation in Bihar alone.
Wow, that's impressive. But how does the budget actually support the makhana industry?
Well, the big news is the creation of a dedicated Makhana Board.
Okay.
This board will focus on streamlining processing, promoting value addition, and creating better market linkages for makhana farmers.
So it's about taking this traditional crop and turning it into a modern, thriving industry. That's smart. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about another bright spot in the Indian economy, the electronics sector. I read somewhere that we're now the world's second largest mobile manufacturer.
That's right. And it's a testament to the success of initiatives like Make in India, which have encouraged domestic manufacturing and reduced our reliance on imports. To put it into perspective, back in 2014, we were importing over 70% of the mobile phones sold in India. Now that number has flipped over. 99% of the phones sold here are actually made in India.
That's a huge shift. What are some of the factors that have contributed to this success?
A few things have played a role. First, the government has created a more favorable policy environment for electronics manufacturing. They've also introduced financial incentives and invested in infrastructure. Second, Indian companies have really stepped up their game. They're now producing high-quality phones that are competitive on the global stage.
It's inspiring to see India becoming a major player in the global electronics market. Now let's take a quick detour to Europe, where Belgium has a new Prime Minister, Bart de Wever.
For those who might need a quick geography refresher, Belgium is a small country in northwestern Europe known for its waffles, chocolate, and complicated politics. It's actually divided into 3 regions: Flanders, Wallonia, and Brussels. Each region has its own language and culture, and navigating those differences can be tricky.
Sounds like a fascinating but maybe a bit chaotic political landscape.
You could say that De Wever's election marks a significant shift in Belgian politics, and it'll be interesting to see how he tackles some of the long-standing divisions within the country.
Okay, let's get back to health now, where there's some promising news for people living with rheumatoid arthritis or RA. I understand researchers are working on a new drug delivery system that could revolutionize treatment.
You're right. RA is a chronic autoimmune disease that causes painful inflammation in the joints. It can be debilitating and really impact a person's quality of life. The current treatments often have side effects, which can be a major challenge for patients.
So how does this new drug delivery system work?
Researchers have developed tiny particles called microspheres. These microspheres are loaded with methotrexate, which is a common drug used to treat RA. But here's the innovative part. These microspheres are designed to release the drug only when they detect inflammation in the joints.
That's amazing. It's like a targeted missile system for inflammation.
That's a great way to think about it. By delivering the drug directly to the site of inflammation, this system could potentially minimize side effects and make the treatment much more effective.
That's definitely a development worth keeping an eye on. Now, on a slightly more concerning note, there's been a recent case of brucellosis in Kerala. Can you tell us more about this disease and what it means for public health?
Brucellosis is a bacterial infection that can spread from animals to humans. It's typically found in livestock like cattle, pigs, and goats. People can get infected through contact with infected animals or by consuming contaminated animal products like unpasteurized milk or cheese.
So, zoonotic disease, meaning it can jump from animals to humans.
Exactly. And while it's not always serious, brucellosis can cause a range of symptoms, including fever, joint pain, and fatigue. In severe cases, it can even lead to long-term complications.
So what can be done to prevent brucellosis?
The key is to raise awareness about the risks and promote good hygiene practices, especially when handling livestock or consuming animal products. This includes things like properly cooking meat, pasteurizing milk, and washing your hands thoroughly after contact with animals.
It's a reminder that public health is closely linked to animal health. Now let's shift gears to the world of arts and culture, where Chaman Arora has won the prestigious Sahitya Akademi Award for his work in Dogri literature.
This is a big deal in the literary world. The Sahitya Akademi Awards are India's highest literary honors, recognizing outstanding works in 24 recognized Indian languages.
It was like winning the Oscars for literature.
You could say that Aurora's winning book, Ikhor Ashtama, showcases the richness and beauty of Dogri literature, which is spoken primarily in the Jammu region of Jammu and Kashmir.
It's a reminder of the incredible diversity of languages and literary traditions that exist within India. And speaking of vibrant traditions, let's travel to Andhra Pradesh, where the Dhimsa dance is a captivating spectacle.
The Dhimsa dance is a tribal dance form performed by women in the Araku Valley region of Andhra Pradesh. It's known for its energetic movements, rhythmic footwork, and colorful costumes.
Can you paint us a picture of what it's like to witness this dance?
Imagine a group of women dressed in vibrant attire adorned with beads and jewelry moving gracefully in a circle. Their feet beat rhythmically on the ground, creating a percussive accompaniment to the music. They sway their bodies, clap their hands, and create intricate formations, and their faces beaming with joy and energy.
It sounds like a truly immersive cultural experience. Now for our final global health update, there's some promising news in the fight against Ebola.
Uganda is leading the way with the first ever clinical trial for a vaccine, specifically targeting the Sudan species of the Ebola virus. Ebola is a deadly viral disease that causes severe fever, bleeding, and organ failure. There are actually 6 known species of Ebola virus, and the Sudan species is one of the deadliest.
This trial is a major step forward in the fight against this devastating disease.
Absolutely. Developing effective vaccines is crucial for preventing future outbreaks and saving lives. And the fact that this trial is happening in Uganda, a country that has been directly impacted by Ebola outbreaks, is significant.
It highlights the importance of international collaboration and supporting research and development in the countries that are most affected by these diseases. And finally, let's talk about a government scheme that's aiming to boost innovation in a very specific sector, technical textiles.
You're talking about the GREAT scheme, which stands for Grant for Research and Entrepreneurship across aspiring innovators in technical textiles. It's a key component of the National Technical Textiles Mission, which aims to position India as a global leader in this sector.
So it's not just about your everyday clothes. We're talking about specialized textiles with specific technical properties and applications.
Exactly. Think about medical textiles, protective gear for industrial workers, agricultural textiles used for crop protection, or even textiles used in aerospace engineering. These are all examples of technical textiles.
And the GREAT scheme is designed to encourage innovation in these areas.
Precisely. It provides financial support and resources to researchers, startups, and entrepreneurs who are developing cutting-edge technologies and products in the field of technical textiles.
It's about fostering that crucial link between research and development and commercialization, turning innovative ideas into marketable solutions.
That's exactly right. And it's a strategic move by the government recognizing the immense potential of technical textiles for economic growth and job creation.
Well, that's quite a roundup of today's most important current affairs. We've covered everything from superfoods to innovative drug delivery systems to the intricacies of Belgian politics. It's been a whirlwind tour of information. But before we wrap up, part 2 of our February 7th, 2025 deep dive, I'd love to hear what stood out to you today. What were some of the key takeaways that you think will be particularly useful for your UPSC preparation?
Yeah, it really is amazing how these seemingly random, news snippets can connect to bigger trends and challenges when you start digging deeper. It just goes to show you how dynamic and interconnected our world is and how important it is to stay informed and engaged.
And that's exactly what makes preparing for the UPSC exam so fascinating, wouldn't you agree? It's not just about rote memorization, it's about developing that critical thinking mindset that allows you to see the bigger picture, analyze different perspectives and form your own well-reasoned opinions. Absolutely. The UPSC exam is designed to test your ability to think critically and apply your knowledge to real-world situations. That's why we go beyond the headlines here on the deep dive. We want to equip you with the knowledge and the insights you need to not just ace the exam,
Right.
but to become a well-rounded and informed citizen capable of leading and serving the nation effectively.
Remember, the UPSC exam isn't just about getting a high score. It's about preparing yourself for a lifetime of service and leadership. The topics we cover here on the deep dive are relevant not just for the exam, but for understanding the complexities of the world around us and the challenges we face as a nation.
So as you continue your UPSC journey, don't just passively absorb information. Engage with it, critically ask questions, connect it to the real world.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to dive deep into topics that pique your interest. You never know where that curiosity might lead you.
And most importantly, don't lose sight of why you embarked on this journey in the first place. The UPSC exam is challenging, demanding, and at times it can feel overwhelming. But remember the impact you can make as an IAS officer. You'll have the opportunity to shape policies, implement programs, and make a real difference in the lives of millions of people.
That's a powerful reminder. So to all our UPSC aspirants out there, keep pushing forward, keep learning, and keep that fire of service burning bright.
Absolutely. And that wraps up our deep dive into the current affairs of February 7th, 2025. If you found this deep dive helpful and insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your fellow UPSC aspirants.
Yes.
We're here to support you every step of the way.
Now go out there and conquer those UPSC dreams.